everybody. I'm Jesse Waters along with Candace Owens, Geraldo Rivera, Dana Perino, and Greg. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. President Trump's predicting a red wave after last night's election results. This comes as the Democrats' dream of winning a race in Ohio's 12th appears to be just that, a dream. It's still too close to call, but the president's claiming victory with Republican candidate Troy Balderson leading. Trump-backed candidates in other states also having big nights. The president confidently tweeting about his endorsement hot streak. As long as I campaign and or support Senate and House candidates within reason, they will win. Speaking of winning, the opposite happened for socialist candidates looking to take over the Democrat Party. Their new leader adding insult to injury with a baffling new statement.
I think that politically, this upper middle class is probably more moderate. Mm-hmm. But that upper middle class doesn't exist anymore in America. Their heyday was in the 90s when kids had Furbies and parents, you had soccer moms with 2 vans and stuff
Furbies and 2 vans.
Yeah.
That's a dream.
That's not America anymore.
I counted about 7 likes in that sentence. I know that really bothers you, Dana.
She's like a cute photo on Facebook. She gets a lot of likes.
She gets a lot of likes. So what did you think about last night in general, and then also about not a very good statement by the socialists?
I think that it was an interesting introduction that you had there into that segment. The Republicans did okay, but I don't think they should be resting that there's going to be some big red wave, because it's just a tough environment. It always is. In the first midterm for any president. And look at history, and there's only one example, and that's kind of an aberration because of the war. I do think that the interesting thing is how the left-wing progressives are not winning. So more traditional, establishment-type, moderate Democrats who have been around the block a few times, they're winning. So Bernie and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they have an interesting duo. They get a lot of attention. They have an outsized influence in the media, but they're not translating that into wins on the ground. I don't know what that necessarily means going forward. I'd also point to something like in Missouri, where voters voted 2-1 against a state legislative law for right to work. Yeah. And one of the reasons is because the messaging by the Democrats and the unions was really good. They had one of these ads that showed, okay, workers get paid an average of $8 an hour compared to this is what CEOs get. And it was effective messaging. So some of the things that we talk about up here in New York, and we're big picture overseas, we're not really seeing what's happening on the ground in some of these places.
That's right. Also talking about branding, Ben Jealous. Very upset. He's running for governor in Maryland, and former NAACP director. He was asked about being branded a socialist by his Republican opponent, and this is how he responded.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but do you identify with the term socialist?
Are you kidding me? Is that a final point?
Wow, Greg.
I think I would vote for him just for that response, because it was just so natural. I will say this to your point. Ocasio's endorsements went ignored, which leads me to conclude the only people that were paying attention to her was us. And we were building her up into something because she was a socialist, and we liked that. We had a piñata for a while, and we were the only people that were focusing. I love the story. I don't think this is a blue wave. I don't think it's a red wedding. It's more like a purple nurple. Everybody got a little of something. Yeah. The Democrats almost won, but I love how the Washington Post can look at a victory that might happen for the Republicans and still call it a Democratic win because their morale is high, and that's all that matters. My favorite story is the Green Party spoiler candidate who got 1,100 votes, may have cost the Democrats the election, but the Democrats cannot get mad at him because he claims he's from outer space and they are pro-alien.
What a relief.
And we've invited that Democrat on Waters World.
Of course. Do you know
Green Party Democrat.
He believes that every American should grow hemp.
And what's the bad news about that?
I was saying that's
For the good of the
beautiful
country.
for the good of the country.
You grow
and he can't remember his own website, so there might be a correlation.
I thought Jesse's intro was, I always wear those the rose-colored glasses. I thought yours were definitely rose-tinted because there's trouble ahead for the Republican Party unless the president maintains his hands-on approach. He did a great job. I think John James in Michigan is the rock star of the election last night. He's a West Pointer, an Apache pilot, a combat veteran, a black businessman, successful business, grew his business, married 2 kids. I think he really has a tremendous future. I don't know if he could beat the incumbent Debbie Stabenow, but I think he's got a terrific, terrific future. On the other hand, I think the president's embrace of Chris Kobach in Kansas. I mean, why Chris Kobach? I mean, he's a nice guy. He's very articulate, Ivy League educated, but his policies on immigration are so Neanderthalish that I don't know how he can possibly win. I don't know why the president chose him, if probably because of loyalty, because Kobach came in and helped him craft his draconian immigration policy. Which
why do you got to pick on the Neanderthals?
Maybe not Neanderthal. Strict. I think it's strict. We have some sound from Danny Boy, as President Trump likes to call him. He I guess, almost eked out a victory in Ohio 12. This is what he had to say about Nancy Pelosi, Candace.
Will you vote for Nancy Pelosi to be your Speaker of the House?
No, I won't. And we really need new leadership because what we've seen in Washington, and I think this was demonstrated last night, is that the same old politics aren't working.
So they're running candidates in certain places, Candace, that are trying to distance themselves from Nancy Pelosi.
And that is actually a smart move, and that's why I think he had such a successful campaign. Look, we, on the right, we had to be very careful there in Ohio. It's been a close call. We don't really know what's going to come of it. But I will say this. The smartest thing you can do is distance yourselves from the extremists. Distance yourselves from Nancy Pelosi. Distance yourselves from Elizabeth Warren. Distance yourself from Maxine Waters, who is calling for violence. And that's the only way they are going to be able to salvage the Democrat Party. And look, the thing I was watching last night, obviously, was the Democratic Socialists. I was happy to see that crashed and it burned and that 4 of the candidates that Alexandria Cortez endorsed, nothing happened there because that was a very compelling story there. Is that really where we're going to go? 100 million deaths in the last 100 years due to socialism, and that's what their platform was essentially built on. But it turns out, America, good news, most of America understands basic math, and no, everything cannot be free.
I like the platform. I have to say, I love $15 an hour minimum wage. I think why not? I mean, how do you live with $8 an hour? Some of these jobs.
Can I give you the math? Can I actually give you the math?
Well, let me finish. Let me finish with what else I like that you hate. I think that we should guarantee health care. There should be Medicaid for everybody.
Okay.
I think the student debt. I mean, my goodness, I was a movie star for 3 years. I mean, seriously, I was the biggest local newsman in New York. 3 years it took me to pay off my
I had $100,000.
Why is that our problem?
I had $100,000 in student loan debt, and guess how I got out of it? I worked my way out of it like everybody else should. You read the papers, you understand, which I didn't at the time, what you're signing, and you move on. But listen to this. $15 an hour means that businesses are just going to hire less people. More people will be out of work. That is the mathematics of it.
I think if you got to hike the price of a McDonald's, you got to hike the price.
You can't just say the businesses can't make the money come out of thin air.
All right, just to the 2 points that Geraldo raised. The minimum wage is for people on the. You're not supposed to stay at the minimum wage. It's the entry level first rung of the ladder. So the idea of raising that that one rung doesn't help anybody. That's just to get more people on the ladder. So you have to keep that. That's why you keep the price low. Student debt. The reason for that is because we are giving too many loans out. We're making it easy to go to college. And so now you have all these people, and and college, let's face it, is overrated. It really is. It's expensive. It's expensive and it's overrated. And now it's becoming, you have all these kids that are basically enslaved to campuses, and it's nuts. But I also, just to the coming election, I think I'm a neurotic. I plan for the worst. I don't see any really encouraging news for Republicans. I don't, out of what happened last night. I think you should, if you want to win.
How about the other way around?
If you want to win, prepare to lose. And that'll make you fight harder.
Part of it is the funding, right? So, and Congressman Steve Stivers, who's the chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee, said, "Okay, guys, we can't do this for all of you." Mm-hmm. Okay, so they pulled out all the stops.
They put $4 million into that Ohio race. At
least, and that doesn't count independent expenditures, not to mention the travel and time of Pence and President Trump. If the president's going to come and campaign for you, like, that's a huge investment, and you have to figure out how much time does he actually have to be going and doing rallies everywhere for you. You've got to do your work. You've got to figure out a way not to be outspent by these Democrats.
We've got to give out Furbies.
How does the president, let's just say things don't go as well as he thinks they're going to go. There's no red wave, and the Democrats maybe have 1 or 2 vote margin in the House. If he's out there, as he says, campaigning 6 to 7 days a week, and he doesn't keep the House, how will he frame that issue? How will he explain what happened?
Well, before he does the explaining, the problem with the Republicans losing the House of Representatives is what? It is that they will move immediately to try and impeach the President of the United States. I really believe that in my heart, even though I am in many ways a very progressive person.
Pelosi says it's not necessarily something you're going to do.
I want him to survive, and I hate the idea that they're going to short-circuit his term or attempt to. And at the very least, it's going to be a gigantic distraction from real problems like North Korea, like Syria.
It's also going to create massive unrest in America
100%.
when you have 66 million people knowing that you are now stealing election because you didn't like the results of 2016.
Can I tell you there's another thing, though? Like, let's just say that they don't move for impeachment, as Pelosi has said that they won't. There's another road for President Trump, and it's something that he'd be very good at, which is say, like, well, I did all I could. Mm-hmm. The media and the lame Republicans who couldn't get out there and raise enough money and campaign well, they lost. But you know what? I can get things done with these guys. I'm a deal maker. Right?
Let's
do Infrastructure Week. Let's finally actually get it done.
Finally.
There is another way, and Bill Clinton did that in 94 to 96.
He got killed in 94.
But his re-election was actually quite good. If what you really care about is President Trump getting reelected in 2020, losing the House is not the worst thing that could happen to you.
All right. An anti-Trump liberal mayor gets a free pass after attacking the press. Greg calls out the hypocrisy. Up next.
Who else?
New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio spoke to The Guardian on Tuesday. The Guardian is a crazy left British newspaper, so it was basically no different than de Blasio talking to himself. Crazy stuff comes out of his mouth, and people with butterfly nets make a circle because the loony bin might be the only place left for de Blasio and his make-believe politics. That was a lie. Whew. He told The Guardian, if you could remove News Corp from the last 25 years of American history, we would be a more unified country. We would not be suffering a lot of the negativity and divisiveness we're going through right now. We went to the mainstream media for comment on this blatant attack on the press. Stelter's head on a cricket. Only on the 5, ladies and gentlemen. Bill de Blasio, when was the last time you gave this towering piece of politics a thought? So he thinks America would be better off without us? What he's really saying is he would be better off without us. But he's wrong. Even without America's most watched news channel making fun of him, other progressives still shun him. He's 7 feet of political invisibility. So it should be easy to pretend de Blasio's dumb ideas don't exist. But if that were the case, millions of people would be better off. You can't beat leftism for burdening humanity, and that's why Lurch hates us. We point this out while doing our best to ignore him. Anyway, over at CNN, Brian Stelter denies the mayor's words are an attack on the press, claiming it's not about the media at all, but a media empire. Right, I guess if Trump didn't say it, it's not a story. And if it's about Fox, who cares? We get it. Run along, Brian. Anderson's lunch is getting cold. Okay. Dana de Blasio's the mayor. He's not the president. But, I mean...
But he wants to be the president.
Yes,
That's what I think this is all about. He's a term-limited lame duck. This is right around the time when in Iowa, Democratic hopefuls start going out there.
Yeah.
He's trying to like basically send out a signal. And attacking leading publications is a way to do that. Where did he learn that?
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like, President Trump's been very effective with it. I don't know if it will work for de Blasio. I assume not. But I do think that he's wading back into some of these bigger fights. Like, he wants to pick a fight with Uber here in New York City.
Yeah.
And that's partly because he needs some reason, some way to get national coverage.
Yeah. Candace, double standard, the fact that, they're talking about Fox, not a big deal because, everybody knows what Fox is. It's not like CNN.
Is that a serious question? Double standard on the left? I mean, is water wet? This is what we're seeing all the time. This is their entire thing. We can do it, but you guys can't. The left loves this, They've been unusually silent at CNN this week. They were silent when we were attacked, although they spent all of last week crying about Jim Acosta and the CNN sucks chant, which, by the way, it kind of does, okay? This is what they do, and it's sickening, but at the same time, it's like par for the course. This is the #1 network for a reason. Nobody cares what de Blasio thinks.
Geraldo, I was going to ask you a question, but I got to tell you, you're about to talk.
Well, why? Just because my cheeks are all puffing out?
Yes, I can see it.
My fists are clenched.
You know de Blasio. You know everybody in New York.
I know he's what has always impressed me about de Blasio is that for all his dominance of local politics, New York mayoral politics and local politics, he has zero national appeal. He has zero charisma.
Yes.
I mean, so when you compare it to Bloomberg or to Giuliani or even to Ed Koch before that, here's a guy, he's a giant guy, he dominates physically, and yet he has zero kind of appeal. It doesn't move the needle at all. I don't think he has any future in the Democratic Party. He's never talked about it. I don't think any, he really has it out for Fox News. I mean, we have press parking outside. I've always had press parking. I'm 48 years in the business. I've always had NYP plates because I always park right in front of my shop. I worked at ABC 15 years, NBC 8 years, at the talk show at CBS 11 years, and I always had NYP. He took NYP parking away from Fox News, and they still have it at NBC 2 blocks up. No, they still have it at CBS 4 blocks up. But he took away NYP parking. So I am really against the block.
This is an outrage. I think America should feel his
rally to me.
I need America. Geraldo lost his special parking place, America.
I have a bad leg.
That is ridiculous.
Jesse, have you lost any preferred parking since de Blasio has become mayor?
But I need to know how to get those NYP plates. I need some of those. I remember de Blasio physically had me removed from his press conference by security because I asked him a question.
Did they pick you up?
No, they couldn't. I'm pretty strong. So he's very prickly. He's very sensitive. He doesn't want unity in this country. He wants a monopoly. They can't be content with 90% control over the media. They need 100% control. They can't stand criticism, and they want praise. He tweeted at me and says Jesse Waters doesn't belong in New York City.
What does that even mean?
That's awesome. One time he was getting warm in a tent during New Year's Eve, and I wanted to go down there and get warm too. And I was told by his security, no, you're not allowed to be in the same tent as the mayor. He doesn't want you in there.
That's the greatest story.
Thing that I've ever heard.
But and he tweeted at you?
Yeah.
I'm now beginning to like this mayor.
That is kind of funny. You can't stand.
That's sort of the ballsiest thing I've heard him do.
Get out of my tent.
Get out of my tent, Jesse.
Well, that's intolerant. If you can't allow, Jesse to get warm, what in the world is this?
And how could we let this segment go by without talking about the obvious degradation of this city?
Yeah, no, it's true.
I've lived here, 7 years?
God.
Almost 8 years. And in the last few, you can really see a decline. Every day you see it more.
Yeah. It's because of Uber.
But the thing is, Geraldo, it's because
construction on every block.
No, Geraldo, it's because nobody votes in New York because they assume a liberal's going to win. So 20% of the people vote.
Uber
it is 20%. It's not 30%.
Uber didn't cause the homeless problem, though.
The homeless problem. I was shocked by that the other morning when I was walking. There's so many homeless people, and it reeks. New York City was cleaner years ago.
People deserve to be treated better than that.
Yeah, so that's Antifa.
No, it's all over. Yeah, it's the Antifa sense.
It's all Geraldo's fault because of the deinstitutionalization.
Yeah.
I'm blaming you, Geraldo. I'm kidding.
You should run for mayor.
All right.
That's right.
I go
should run for mayor.
Thank you.
No, not with that Democrat policy, though.
You'll get a better parking space. You'll get
the way Republicans
run as an independent. Run as an independent.
John James, by the way, should campaign as a Democrat in Michigan.
Yeah.
Even though he's a Republican, he should be in Detroit. He should be in Flint. He should be looking at water.
Actually.
That's what I want.
Why did you run as an independent?
Because I don't want to. My time has passed. Now I want to.
That's not true.
I want to sit in my hammock.
This is the new.
I want to eat poutine. I'm going to talk about that later. That great food.
Your age is now where like the protein.
They're yelling at me.
Rice and beans, margaritas.
Getting hungry. A crazy story out of New Mexico about a man allegedly training children to commit school shootings. Details on that next.
Fox News Alert is a disturbing story out of New Mexico. Prosecutors saying a man accused of abusing children at a compound in the state was training them to carry out school shootings. William Lajeunesse joins us now with all the very latest. William.
Well, Dana, it's actually all the adults there, but let me tell you, police did find these 11 children, ages 1 to 15, last week, hungry and malnourished, living in this compound in rural New Mexico. They also found an AR-15, 5 30-round loaded magazines, and 4 loaded pistols. Now, according to court records from just a few hours ago, these 5 defendants that you see here, 2 men and 3 women, trained at least one of the children in how to use a gun. Quoting from those records, a foster parent of one of the 11 children stated the defendant had trained the child in the use of an assault rifle in preparation for a future school shooting. Additional charges filed specifically against the women for transporting kids beyond state lines for the purpose of receiving advanced weapons training to commit future acts of violence. Now, police executed this search warrant last week after receiving a text saying, "We are starving, need food and water." A SWAT team, after seeing a firing range on the property, moved in unannounced and arrested the 5 suspects. Now, they were looking for a boy, 3-year-old Abdul Wahaj. He was kidnapped last year by his father, Siraj, who believed the boy was possessed by the devil and planned to perform an exorcism. In fact, the boy could not walk because of epilepsy. Now, Siraj's father is a controversial Islamic cleric and was an unindicted co-conspirator in the '93 World Trade Center bombing, according to the New York Post, the Daily News, and Senator Chuck Schumer. The cleric also called the CIA and the FBI terrorists and defended the man who was ultimately convicted in the Trade Center bombing. So court records say some of these kids who are now in state custody, Dana, told police that in the last few days they saw that 3-year-old boy, Abdul, that he was in the compound. He is now assumed to be dead. Police retrieved what they believe to be his bones, but that has yet to be confirmed by the coroner. Right now, all 5 suspects are in court. Back to you.
Wow. Thank you, William. Sobering, confusing, very disturbing story. Geraldo, I'll go to you first because you've covered a lot of these breaking news stories, and there's a lot we don't know. But what do your instincts tell you?
Well, a couple of things. The first thing I think of, I think of all my Muslim friends, and I think about every time there's one of these cases, and here you are, extremist Muslims with AR-15s and compounds, planning school shootings and all that. My dad, a proud Puerto Rican, came here. And every time there was a big crime, he used to hold his breath until the perp was identified, hoping against hope that it wouldn't be a Puerto Rican person because it was going to disparage the whole community. So I feel awful for the Muslim community. I want to emphasize that they had candidates running. You have one who's going to be the first candidate for Congress in Michigan, all the rest of that. In terms of the extremism, these are nut jobs. These are narcissistic, paranoid, crazy, militant people. I don't know how they existed that long in the New Mexico desert before someone complained about them. This complaint, as I understand it, came from the Family Services in Georgia. Mm-hmm. It's a very disturbing, tacky, awful story. I'm sorry about the 3-year-old. I hope the other 11 can get over the scars that these monsters inflicted, allegedly.
Any initial thoughts, Candace?
Well, my initial thought is not to first defend the religion of Muslim. I think that's a strange reaction that we're seeing more and more, particularly on the left, is to die down and say Muslim is a religion, it's a religion of peace. Islam is a religion of peace. I think it's an important dialogue we need to have, especially in this country, when we start to have conversations about bringing in refugees from regions of the world which are against the American culture, against Western. I understand that he's from Brooklyn, but I'm talking about in general what we're talking when we talk about bringing refugees over. We're talking about bringing extremists over, and this guy obviously is extreme. So I hesitate. I wouldn't do what you did there and instantly defend it. I hope that there is a wider conversation because, God forbid, they did not stop this. What would be the consequence? Right. How much of this is being bred here? Why is it being bred here? Who's coming over here and teaching this sort of indoctrination? So there are a lot of bigger questions that need to happen. Terrible story, and I definitely will be following it and seeing what happens.
Greg, the idea of school shootings as a form of terror, when whenever we've covered a lot of school shootings, we've covered a lot on this show, there's always a question, was this terrorism related? And often it turns out not to be the case. But the idea that school shootings are a form of terrorism is an interesting one.
Yeah, one of the, there are no silver linings to this other than the fact that it was stopped. So that's a pretty good silver lining. But we're hearing fewer and fewer of these things happening. That, to me, is encouraging. But I don't want to relax. And I always feel that extremism will be around as long as humanity is around. And we have 330 million people, so you're bound to have a few extremists that can inflict. One person can inflict incredible damage.
Right.
And we always have to be cognizant and not be afraid if we do see something to say something, and not to go after people who actually do say something who might be wrong. I think that's what keeps people from reporting things, is that they see something, they say something, but if they do something, then they get in trouble. But I think that in this case, this is an example that these mindsets still exist.
And then, thankfully, the people that did something here were the authorities in charge were able to go in and save the kids.
Yeah, hats off to law enforcement. They saved countless lives, not only the children there at the compound, but the potential victims of the school shootings. I can't believe this guy's the son of an imam who was an unindicted co-conspirator in the 93 World Trade Center bombings. How many unindicted co-conspirators have there been in the 93 World Trade Center bombing? It sounds like there's dozens of them. Why are they unindicted? And why do they keep popping up?
And why
on
aren't
all
they
of
being
these
traced?
new developments?
Correct.
Exactly. The sons, the uncles, everyone is, this family tree is poisoned. And this guy's a huge red flag. I'm glad they finally nailed him.
Indeed. Well, we'll keep on it and bring you more information as it becomes available. Meanwhile, 2 NFL Hall of Famers take a stand against kneeling. Will protesting players listen to them this season? That's ahead.
I make a lot of noise, 'cause the girls, they are so pretty. Riding up and down Broadway. Here we go.
No. Stop it.
2 NFL Hall of Famers are taking a stand against protesting players. The legendary Cleveland Browns, my new favorite team, running back Jim Brown, weighing in on the anthem controversy, saying he would never kneel. Quote, I am not going to denigrate my flag, and I am going to stand for the national anthem, because what is the top side? Are you not going to stand up? This is our country, man. Brown adding that he still respects the players, and coaching great Tony Dungy also agrees.
I would stand because I personally think that's the way to go, but I know my dad was in the service. He was in the military. That's why he fought. That's why he enlisted in World War II, to give us the choice, the freedom of choice to do what we think is best. These guys are not unpatriotic. They are not standing against our country. They're standing against kneeling against what's wrong in the country.
So, Candace, what about that? What about Coach Dungy? He's such a wonderful person. He's so
Wonderful,
agreeable and thoughtful.
Yeah, I was really happy to see this. Wins the week. I'm really excited about this. I'm seeing more and more of this, to be honest. NFL protesting is starting to stop, and we're seeing more players stand up and say that they are not going to participate in it, which means people are starting to think individually, which is what I preach and what I practice every single day. Look, the problem with these protests is obvious. It was built upon essentially something that wasn't true. If you're going to stand up for something and you say it's police brutality and shootings, something that impacted during the year that all of this started, 2016, only 16 unarmed black men were shot and killed by police officers. Result that the total is 0.0004% of the black community was impacted by this. They're never kneeling when you talk about the welfare programs. They're never kneeling for fatherless absence, all of the other problems that we have in the black community. And that's what I took issue with. Why would you pick this issue? That was my problem.
What about freedom of speech, though? What about the fact that, as Coach Dungy says, the players have an absolute right. They're not doing it to disrespect the country. They're doing it to point out some of the problems that Candace seems to think are inflated.
I think they have freedom of speech off the field, on their Twitter account, if they want to come on Gutfeld's show or ESPN or a podcast, and they can say whatever they want. But once you're wearing the uniform of the owner and you're standing there on the field, not your field, I mean, that's the company field. You can't do whatever you want, and you can be sanctioned for that. You can be fined. You can be told what to do. They regulate what we do here at Fox News. So I think it was the wrong thing. It backfired. They realized that. Kaepernick has now faded. The tide is turning. The Cowboys players that came out, I thought that was strong. That's moving the needle. The debacle with the Philadelphia Eagles going to the White House, I think changed a lot of people's mind. Hopefully this thing has now calmed down, and we can have a nice, good NFL season.
I mean, let me go a different way.
And the Eagles can repeat.
Well, the Browns can't do any worse. So they have Baker Mayfield, maybe. Hey, future. You know what? I worry about President Trump, Dana, and this issue because and even the way he takes on Maxine Waters, I know that's not what we're talking about, but when you call players low intelligent or sons of bitches or whatever, I worry that he doesn't use the same tone when he is criticizing white guys for doing white guy stuff.
Have you heard him?
Well, you ever hear what he said about John McCain?
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think he doesn't have a problem going after people.
Lock her up.
Yeah. How about
so you don't think there's a problem with
what about Rosie O'Donnell
specifically?
Well, I think that people remember the insults a lot more than they would remember the fact that there's like good economy or things like that. I mean, of course, I think it's counterproductive for President Trump and also for the players who are kneeling, because at this point, no one is thinking that, as Candace was saying, that it's not about the original idea for their protest. I did note that Shannon Sharp took a lot of umbrage at what Jim Brown said. And one of the things he wrote was that movements are team efforts, and the players doing this didn't ask Jim to be a part of this, that he's disappointed in him, and that
that Shannon Sharp is disappointed in Jim Brown.
Because I believe right now you're doing activism for pay. So it is exacerbating even within the black community. I agree. I like the football season. I don't know a lot about it, but I kind of enjoy the whole culture around it. So hopefully, yes, I agree. And I hear that the Broncos have a really good new quarterback.
Listen,
pretty good.
America's
So are you a big football fan? I don't know.
I used to play pro ball in the 70s.
You were the ball.
Yeah, I was the ball. Good one. Okay, just pulling out of this actual topic and why something like this in general for me is refreshing. It's why old guys are refreshing, because they remind you of an old school mentality that seems to be fading.
Talking about me?
No, I'm talking, well, you too, maybe. Brown, but like Jim's Brown, it's like, it's this kind of like, when he's talking, you were actually time traveling to another era where men were stoic and laconic. There was less navel gazing and emotive analysis that you see. We put a lot of importance on being well spoken, but there's a certain masculine minimalism from the 70s and the 60s. Guys just did stuff. They didn't say stuff. And I think that when you hear, I think that's the difference between like Brown and maybe the modern day adult, is that he just
Johnny
says,
Manziel.
He just says what he's like, you just stand up. It's your job, just stand up. And that's how old guys think, and we're missing that.
They were men. That's what's changed. Men were men back then.
Men were men. I hate the fact that politics has infected sport. I hate it.
I hate it how it's infected the 5.
Deadlifting drama. Find out what sparked a barbell blowout at the gym. That's next.
This is actually...
Good time never seemed so good.
All right, guys, when pumping iron goes wrong. A 19-year-old weightlifter at a Canadian gym was in the middle of his workout when he was confronted by an angry member for being too loud. The two then got into a heated shoving match. Watch.
You listening? Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out!
That man has been banned from the health club and could face criminal charges. So, with that in mind, what are the 5's biggest gym pet peeves? Take it away, Jesse.
Well, I don't lift heavy anymore, so I don't have anybody spot me. I'll do I'll do high reps, low weights. I'll do a lot of planking and a lot of sit-ups and stuff like that. Yeah, there's me with my old trainer, Corey.
You actually got a picture.
I dropped the trainer. I can't afford him anymore, and I joined a different gym, and I miss you, Corey.
You work out in a sleeveless shirt.
No, I actually don't.
Jesse Waters, everybody.
No, I rolled those up for the photo.
Jesse's not even answering the question, everybody at home. Jesse's just showing off.
Here's what I don't like. I don't like when I'm working out and then trainers trainers at the gym keep trying to get me to sign up to be a personal trainer.
Equinox.
Great one. Sales at the gym. That was a strong answer. All right.
Oh, let me go because I don't believe that. I don't believe that tape was real because the camera was situated perfectly. But maybe he does that to watch himself work out. But it just seemed. It seemed too.
You don't do that?
No, I don't do that. I hate equipment hogs. People that sit on equipment too long drives me crazy. But if you're gonna talk, like you can't tell these people not to make noise. I have tape of somebody you know right here. This is our good friend Tyrus.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Oh my God.
Who is that? That's Tyrus. He's on my show. He sits in for me on the 5. So I would not tell him. Watch it. I would not tell him that he was making noise. Dana, would you?
I thought that was a picture of you.
I would say, could you just keep it down in there, Tyrus? Keep it down. Keep it down. No, so I have a trainer, believe it or not, John Ofreda, and he watched the video, Candace, that you opened with, and he said that the guy did the right thing, that he was using the proper technique, and he should not have gotten in any trouble for that.
Okay.
What bothers me at the gym? There's this guy. He's a trainer. And he wears his coat in the gym, like a puffy jacket. And even if it's 90 degrees outside,
burn calories?
I don't know, but it bothers me that he's wearing his coat.
Trying to shed weight.
I would be uncomfortable if someone was wearing.
Oh, I got another one. This guy, when he walks on the stepper, he, instead of just doing it normal, he has to hit it every time like this, and it makes a huge noise. It drives me insane.
That's actually.
I hope he's watching. I'm pretty sure he's not, though.
I think that looked like roid rage to me. It looked like people all puffed up on steroids. I mean, I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just suggesting.
They are stupid.
I hate when they don't wipe off the equipment.
Oh, yeah.
That's just a germ thing. I think we're all going to have to switch our gyms after this segment, by the way, as we're all watching this. And I have to be honest with America. I am the girl that sometimes gets distracted by her phone and sits on that machine.
Oh, I hate you. You are the worst.
I know.
You are the worst.
Do you take gym selfies?
Where do you work?
I don't take gym selfies.
Where do you work out? What's the gym?
Neither do I.
It's so bad. No, I have a gym in my building. I do, because it's just, you can't not pay attention to your phone the whole time, because the music's on your phone and then it blurs out and then you have to look at it.
I use an iPod. I'm classic.
Oh, I got great earphones. For Howard Stern gave me great earphones.
At least you're not name dropping.
Could you send us some earphones?
That is absolutely hilarious. Any more pet peeves?
Oh, here's my earphones.
What?
You have a
picture?
I have a picture.
We were submitting pictures.
There.
There we go.
My ears.
Your average 75-year-old.
Pretty decent weights right there.
At least you had your shirt on.
I did. I was instructed to keep my shirt.
I don't take gym selfies, but I actually should invest in having the iPod, because I feel like that would help me be a little less distracted at the
But then I
gym.
could put my phone away.
Yeah.
But the people sitting on the machine drives me, and you say, "Can I use the machine?" They go, "I've got 3 more sets."
No, I go, oh yes, just reminded me I was on a machine.
Yeah.
And then I go, I do my 3 sets. Actually, I had a girl the other day. We were in a separate room, and she brought her boombox and played her music.
No,
she was playing
not for
dirty
me.
hip hop,
Nope.
and I was like, wait,
I
this
think
is.
maybe it was a
was
class.
deciding on everybody's. No, she was deciding.
My
on
building
everybody's
is so
music.
uptight. There's
Pretty
no
ridiculous.
music in the gym. You can only have it in your ears.
Yeah.
That's actually good. All right, guys. One more thing is up next.
1, 2 step. I love it. 1, 2 step. Everybody. 1, 2 step. This beat is.
It's time now for one more thing, Gregory.
Hey, thanks, Jesse. It's been a pleasure tonight working with you. I want to thank everybody at Huntington, New York at Review. Here's some tape of me at the book. Listen to this. It's like, listen to the, can you hear it? I don't think I can keep doing this. I'll get very dizzy and I'll fall over. I just wanted to see how big the crowd is. This is definitely bigger than Kilmeade's. Yeah, there's like 800 people there. Tonight I'm going to be at in North Vale, New Jersey, at Books and Greetings, and then tomorrow Ridgewood, New Jersey, at Bookends. Clever little name there. Book's doing great. I would like to thank everybody here on the table for helping me with this.
You're like Trump. You're bragging
Don't be
about the
modest.
crowd
New York
size of
Times
your.
bestseller.
Bestseller.
Yeah.
Another one.
I didn't want to say it because I was expecting somebody else to say it.
New York Times
I was
bestseller.
going to,
How
but you
clever.
started bathing.
How many New York Times bestseller is this for you? 5?
Number 4.
It's amazing.
Oh, great. See, that's like what Ed McMahon used to do to Johnny Carson. So how many is 100? Well, it's 3. Yeah, but 4. It's 4, I think.
Congratulations. It's a great book.
All right, Dana.
Okay, this is something new. I haven't seen this yet. Here we have this new thing of mine. Dana Sports Corner.
Nice ref outfit.
Because I love Greg Sports Corner. It was the first thing he ever did. I think it was like the first week of the show 7 years ago. I have some big news. You know, I'm a big sports fan. Today, the NCAA adopted some sweeping policy changes and rules It hopes it will clean up college basketball, which, as you know, has been engulfed in scandal and corruption over the last few years. One of the major changes is that elite high school basketball recruits and college players can be now represented by agents who are certified by the NCAA, and they can basically go enter the draft and return to school even if they don't make it. So that's a big change, and that's a new thing.
That was a lame sports corner.
That should clear up some
I
things.
know, I got to work on it.
No animals in it.
Here's some better sports action. This is a minor league baseball game. Look what happened when this one guy, pretty angry about some calls made by the ump. Very, very upset by this. Gets into this huge argument with the umpire. Could not take it anymore, gets kicked out. He goes into the dugout, brings a garbage bucket out onto the field, and places it right behind home plate.
Clever.
That is a garbage call.
That is clever.
I've never seen that before.
At least he didn't dump it out.
That is innovative.
I agree. That's very eloquent.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
All right, Geraldo.
So our daughter Sol was in camp in Toronto, same camp as her mom. Dan Senor too. Know him? He went to the
I do know Dan.
So this is when Sol first sees Mama, runs into her own. So that's in Toronto. But when we were waiting for Sol to get out of camp, we went to Montreal, and in Montreal you have to try the poutine. This is the food that is all the rage. I have a plate right in front of me right here. What it is basically is French fries with cheese curds with brown gravy. Take some, kids.
I have
with
to say my one more
brown
thing next.
gravy. And it used to be, like peasant food, but it's all the rage now. It's sweeping.
You know what? It looks like
Northeast.
a carnival clown threw up.
No, it's actually delicious.
No, but it's really, and it's great
delicious.
for drunks and stoners. I really love it.
That's good stuff.
Speaking of, Candace.
Yeah, so one more thing. Poutine is delicious, but that's not my one more thing. Look, unemployment rate is low. Everybody is out there looking for jobs and actually getting them. One woman went about it the wrong way. An Illinois woman who went to a career fair on her lunch break got caught out after TV news filmed her applying for new work. The footage captured her. She found out because a family friend sent her a text that said, "You looked really good in the picture on the news."
All right.
She's out of a job,
Miss
but
an
it's
episode
okay,
of The
guys.
Five special report up next. Everybody's dream, Shannon Bream.